So this is quite an exciting afternoon. I'm Justin King, and I am your guest host this afternoon on the Retirementals podcast. So I've been kind of on transfer, I suppose, from the Retirement Cafe podcast to guest host Abraham's podcast, so I can actually interview him. So welcome, Abraham.
Yeah, welcome to my podcast. Yes, you've taken the, what do you call it, the host seat today. And yeah, no, thank you for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Well, let's see how much chaos I can cause. I mean, you know, I don't know. I feel like I've got an open table here. So how are you anyway? Nice to see you.
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. I'm very good. Family is well, business is doing really well, and
right.
Yeah, great to have you on the podcast.
Yeah. So, okay. So down to business. What's happening in your world, in the business world? Where are you at the moment?
Well, we've been working hard behind the scene over the last year or so, and kind of thinking about, the sorry state of the advisor technology space. And the difference that we want to make in this space. And we finally nailed it. It took, this took a few years, but, we finally nailed it. And ultimately, in a nutshell, what we're trying to do is, we want to rebuild the operating system for advice, so to speak. We want to rebuild the advisor technology stack and give advisors the tools that they need, to deliver the best outcomes for clients.
Okay, so I mean, as an advisor, for years I've been massively challenged by bringing all the tech into place. I mean, the rekeying gone on forever and ever and ever. And I think we've made significant progress, or organizations have made massive progress during this pandemic. I mean, we are finally doing some digital signatures. Hey, wow,
about time.
This brand new tech that's just suddenly arrived. Yeah. So, okay, I've got, I use a CRM system, which is not built at all for financial services companies. And we've built a whole kind of process and business, application, and it runs on something that is not sold by a financial services kind of provider of tech. Obviously I use Timeline, but I've got a back office system, kind of one of those ones which are produced by the I use Intelligent Office. I'll say what I use, but I use it in essence only to help me do my Gable reporting. But so I'm using a CRM, I'm using Gable reporting, I'm using Timeline, I'm using Voyant. What else am I using? I'm obviously doing all the kind of digital signatures with the providers that I use. So yeah, it doesn't feel, and obviously risk assessment, that's someone else as well. Why I actually bother, I don't know, but that's another conversation. I'm sure it keeps my compliance people happy, but in essence, yeah, I'm kind of swamped by tech, and I don't, nothing ever really gets me kind of going, wow, this is just seamless.
So absolutely. So we started the company that is Timeline today, essentially 2.5 years ago. So June of 2018 was when we set up the company. We've tried the product a little bit before then, and we kind of created Timeline to solve a single problem, right? Which is decumulation. I'm sorry it took me nearly 3 years to recognize this, but it finally dawned on me that actually we were adding to the problem, right? In other words, we became just one more thing, one more tool for the advisors to worry about and to wrap their heads around. And you said it yourself, we then, we're in this essentially sorry state where advisors need 5, maybe 6 different tools just to get to the point where they deliver advice to clients. And we've done some work at Timeline, and we plotted every important piece that the advisor needs to do what they do, deliver advice to clients. And there's like 6, 7 different pieces of technology in the middle of it. How did we arrive at this? And I have spoken to, you know, several firms where we sat down. We did a survey with firms where we sat down. I sat down personally with over 50 firms in the last year alone and just walk and talk through their tech stack. They have a fact find, right? Whatever that is, they might use one of the tools that is out there in the market. They might use their own Excel. The underlying point is that they have something they're using, right?
Yeah.
They have a fact find, then there is risk profiling, then they do, cash flow modeling, then they might come to Timeline to do the, to do the decumulation and maybe use us for some sort of capacity for loss type assessment, then there is the client reporting. I spoke to a national firm that has 3 different client reporting tools, right? They use, money info and, what's the other one? They use all these things to report to client. That's 5 already, right? Yeah, 5. And then there are these things we call advisor platforms, and they don't do 90% of what the advisor needs to run their model, to do the advice. Then there is, investment research or product research, like fee analytics, whatever that they use for the research and the due diligence, maybe kind of use it as a quasi portfolio management, software. And then there is the back office, the CRM system. That's 8 already. And this might sound like, I'm just making the problem look worse than it is. I have literally spoken to tens of advisors personally on a one-to-one basis, and I said to them, walk me through what your tech stack is. And it's messy and it's horrible. And the advisor's paying for, paying 5, 6 different people just to deliver advice. So we made a decision, essentially back end of last year, that we're not going to contribute to the problem anymore. We're going to ultimately rebuild the advisor technology to become the one piece of technology that the advisor can't not do without, to become the full stack advisor platform that you actually need to deliver advice. And you would have seen the work that we've been doing over the last couple of months, introducing the fact find, the risk profiling, the capacity for loss. We're building out the cash flow, the modeling engine that we've been known for. And then we're taking that forward with some of the work that we've been doing on the model portfolio service with Betafolio as well. So, yeah.
Wow. Busy boy. So, okay. I mean, I've been promised the earth by tech people again and again and again. This is the future.
Yeah.
And it so often hasn't been the future. As I say, my CRM system, I run it on something called Infusionsoft. I mean, it's, it's just non-industry at all. And it works well for me. Would I suggest or recommend it to somebody else? Probably not, because I think it lends it to the way we do business. And it has a lot of bespoke work. But let's just take one of those tools that you were mentioning there, fact find. So are you sorry, not fact find, the cash flow software. This is a challenge to the Presswoods of the world and the Voyants of the world, is it?
So freaking literally, I am challenging everyone. and competition is good, right? Competition is good. So that's kind of my starting point.
Does it do tax?
Sorry?
Does it do tax?
Absolutely, yes. It does tax, including. I mean, we already have the capability to do this in Timeline. We already do, the income tax, the capital gains tax, lifetime allowance. All of these are already in Timeline. Of course, we're building out. And by the way, before I go on, the way we built this in Timeline is with the income tax side of things. You're entering the income, right? You're inputting the income or importing it from third party, and it would automatically show you by the side. So we call this live interaction. It would automatically show you by the side what the tax calculation is based on all the other incomes that the client has. So this is live there already, right? Of course, we're building out the IHT and some really fascinating estate planning work. Those are sort of, I see them as Q3, maybe Q4 type deliverables. But I think you touched on an important point there, which is to say, well, I have been promised the earth by technology companies. All I'm going to say to that is, Justin, judge me, right? Judge us based on what we've accomplished so far, right? I used to be your paraplanner, no, didn't I?
Yeah. I had to sack you, didn't I? So I'm sorry about that.
And thank you for doing that, right? And so judge us based on what we've accomplished in the last 2.5 years that we started this journey.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, so, and, you know, and think what more we can do, you know, over the next, you know, I don't know, you know, 2.5 years or 5, 10, or whatever, how many years you want to zoom out to. But, you know, but for me personally, you know, I am dedicating essentially the next decade of my career to fixing this shit. Now, not that it will take a decade, but you get my drift.
Yeah, cool. So, I mean, I must admit, I have played around a little bit with the software, but I haven't really got into the bones of it yet because, you know, all my clients are sat on Voyant and in different places. And I've had, as you know, I've had quite a lot going on in the wrap platform space recently for myself. So as a firm, you know, you got to take each bit as I go along. But let me take this very personally to the issues, you know, that I face as a small firm. And, you know, why did I have to go and choose a CRM system, which was not a non-financial services, which it seems crazy. So people are writing stuff for financial services firms, and I make the choice to go elsewhere. Therefore, you kind of go, well, hold on, someone's got something wrong if I'm having to go and reinvent the wheel in essence. But let's look at this specific part of a CRM, the customer relationship management system. And, you know, for what we do at MFP, I think we do quite a lot of marketing. We, you know, we also have a podcast going out. We have YouTube videos going out. We've got a lot of marketing. We call it's a lot of communication. We're trying to keep people well informed, and we need a really good system for that. Where are you at with that piece of the puzzle, the CRM?
So it's a very good question. So we're not touching the CRM as yet.
Right.
Now, there's two aspects of this. When I think about CRM, there's two things that come to my mind. One is, you know, the marketing and communication type, you know, CRM that you're using. I still do believe that, you know, there are industry standard. There are sort of, you know, non-financial services technology that do a good job of that. So your Infusionsoft is a very good example. You know, Salesforce and all that stuff, the very good examples of that. Then you have the industry, what we call the back office system. So your, you know, the likes of IntelliFlow and IRES and all that stuff. We are not touching that bit yet, right? Right? So our focus today is on what I would call the first 5 steps of the advice process. And that is, you know, fact find, risk profiling, cash flow modeling, including, you know, decumulation, MPS, i.e. model portfolio. By that, I mean, so in that point, I will put your investment research and due diligence and essentially what you need to run your centralized investment proposition in that picture, and then the client communication, client portal, I will put in that picture. So those are the 5 that we're attacking. We are leaving CRM and back office system alone for now, and we'll let our users, guide us, right? Ultimately on this journey. Is this something that they would like to see us? I mean, you will be the second advisor I'm speaking to in as many days who think that we should possibly be looking at this. But the point though, the final point, and I promise I'll shut up, is once we get the first 5 steps right and connected to the industry providers, by that I mean platforms, so we can talk about the work that we're doing on integration with third parties. We are actually going into the engine behind platform through our relationship with FNZ to plug into to the data behind platform. But once we nail those 5 steps, I think it's really then a matter of choice for advisors. Do you want to join that up to an industry standard, I say industry standard CRM, by that I mean, the likes of Salesforce or the sort of things that you're using, or do you want to use a financial service specific CRM to do that? So, but I think that we can't and we shouldn't try to do this, CRM piece until we've nailed those first steps. Imagine, I think the problem is that financial service back office systems, they are built from the back forward. In other words, they started out building with providers and old style advisors, and then they try to evolve and build the front end, and these things are just horrible. So we don't want to make that mistake. So we're starting from the relationship of the advisor with the client and then building backwards. So see how far we go, right?
Great. No, it's sounding very exciting, and obviously you this is all on API, I presume. So this is how you're getting access to all the systems. Surely the next step is a wrap.
This is a question we've been asked all the time. Are you going to build a wrap? Are you going to build a wrap? And the answer is, I don't know, right? I don't know the answer. Again, for now, we're focusing on those sort of 5 elements. What I will say to you, and we can start talking about platforms, I think that there are a few platforms, today that are very successful, for whom, we have huge respect. Transact is the obvious one. And then there are sort of quite a lot of mediocre platforms that haven't lived to expectation for advisors and clients. You also are starting to see some sort of the newer upstarts in the marketplace, your likes of Fundment, your likes of Circle, and we're talking to these guys. As a matter of fact, we formed a partnership with Fundment that allows advisors who want to use our tech and their tech to ultimately have a joined up and an integrated experience, for their clients. Of course, we have integration, frankly, now with, the major platforms out there. So my point is that the way I see this happening is, as of today, we're not building a platform, right? What we are doing is forming deeper partnership with some of the sort of upstarts like Fundment that I mentioned. We have a relationship with, the established players as well. So as an advisor, if you want to, stay with the existing established players, fine, we're happy to facilitate, that experience for you. of course, we'll talk to you about, deeper, more close knit relationship that we have with the upstarts, because they have newer technology and, APIs that are easier for us to integrate with. We'll talk to you about them. But ultimately, we just want to make sure that we facilitate that advice journey. Whether or not we're going to build a platform, I wouldn't say never, but, ask me in 3 years, Don.
Yeah. And so, is there a challenge from your perspective of linking in to the kind of more traditional, or the older offices, I suppose, like Transact? I mean, to a certain extent, I don't know where they are with their tech. I hands in the air, I do use Transact for some of my business, and they've been around a long time. Therefore, and I don't know exactly where they are with their tech, but I can imagine that they may be. I don't know. I have a feeling that they maybe are not as nimble because of their size, etc. Now, as someone like Fundment. What are are you challenged with the larger people like AJ Bell and Transact, etc., in integrating your tech with them?
So here's the fascinating thing that's happening in platform. Transact is an outlier in terms of the success of the platform and actually how good their tech is. So for instance, Transact doesn't have the modern API, and for the uninitiated, API is just really the thing that allows computers to talk to each other, right? So Transact doesn't have a modern API as we know it, but they are good old-fashioned bulk download method is actually pretty good, right? So in that regard, Transact is an outlier, right? And so specifically about Transact, we don't have a problem actually in integrating with Transact, and it's actually one of the the better integration experience that we have. All the other ones I say all the other ones is a bit unfair. Nucleus has a very good API, which is pretty good, but most of the other ones are pretty shy, right? They're pretty bad, right? But there is, if you like, call it light at the end of the tunnel from an integration point of view, because FNZ, whom we partner with, has built their next generation. They have a next generation, API, which were integrated. So the idea behind that is that we can ultimately connect to all of the FNZ platforms through that single open API systems that we have with FNZ. Now, there is still tons and tons of work to do. We've built, this is the fascinating thing, right? We've built the integration with FNZ, but the platforms themselves still need work to do to turn on, these features and functionality. And I'm hoping that it would happen. But if I'm being brutally honest, I will say to you as an advisor, don't expect this organization to move fast. As a matter of fact, don't expect meaningful innovation to come from the established players, right? Because they're big, and as organizations are, when organizations get big, they are fat, often lazy, right? So it's like thinking that the beautiful thing with working with the likes of Fundment and the newer upstarts is that I can pick up the phone to Ola, and there's been instances and I say, Ola, are you out of your freaking mind? You need to change this. And I make a case to him and I say, this is why and why you need to change it. Am I going to do that with Jonathan Grumby, who runs Transact, or with, with AJ Bell? Of course not. I mean, right. We have conversations with these people, but, the level of influence that we have, is limited in that regard. So I don't expect that there will be massive innovation coming out from the incumbents, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. So one interesting thing, and I wonder about this, that with better tech, we should, as advisors, firms should be able to run more efficient businesses.
Yeah.
And more efficient businesses could mean that we could serve more people.
Yeah.
And maybe we could serve more people at a slightly less cost, which would then maybe somehow fill some of the advice gap, the presumed advice gap. And this is kind of a social thing, but I had a call yesterday from a client or from a prospective client. She wasn't a client. She'd gone through pensions wise, and had got to that point where she needed some advice. 9 different pension pots, earning part-time nurse, earning £12,500 a year, was in the NHS scheme, had been in for 12 years, still was in it, but she'd had a stroke 4 years ago. So now working part-time, 9 different pension pots, a £45,000 mortgage. She was 55, so she could access it. Continued to working. The only dependent she had was a cat. But she was just going, how do I do this? How do I consolidate 9 pots? How do I access some of the cash to pay for some refurbishment of my house and maybe pay off some of my mortgage, etc. And with all honesty, she's spoken to a couple of advisors already, and I tried to guide her free of charge as much as I could without stepping over the line to actually advising her what to do, because she couldn't afford a fee. Not a fee that I need to justify for all the reasons we know that our fees are what they are because of all the costs of running a financial services business. And I'm continually looking at that social need that I would love to be able to step into somehow through advising more efficiently, more streamlined, more tech enabled, somehow is what your vision of the future, will it allow us to serve more people more efficiently and then more cost effectively and maybe bring down the cost of advice?
Yes. But there's a but, right? And so the answer is yes, in the medium term. I mean, I fundamentally believe that people need human advice in making big financial decisions. Over the last decade or so, we've kind of seen this sort of wall of money flowing into, robo-advice and all these things that are trying, unsuccessfully I might add, to disrupt the financial advisor. And so but then they've all come full circle, right? And now you hear Nutmeg is trying to hire a financial advisor, and and so on and so forth. Even in the US, all the robo-advisors are trying to add humans to the equation. And it's like, for us, it's a massive validation of our approach, which is to say, we want to enable the advisor, not disrupt them, in that sense, not remove the advisor from the equation. And so the question I get asked all the time is, Abraham, are you going to make Timeline direct to consumer? Are you going to, put this out there for the, for consumers to play with themselves? And, we kind of said, no, right? We don't want to remove the financial advisor from the equation. Ultimately, where we get to is to say, well, actually, can we see a future where, this lady that you just referred to, where Timeline will be out there for any consumer to sign up to call it a simplified version. We have this thing called the back of the envelope plan in Timeline. So this is what happens. The client or the user, call it the consumer in this case, effectively fill in their own fact find. They put their asset, their state pension, all this information that you will still need, right? And they put that on Timeline. And maybe they play with the back of the envelope calculation. Remember those sliders that, I forget the name of this, payday loan provider used to essentially took over the world. But, we've done the same for investing and saving. What if I save more? What if I save less? What if I withdraw more? What if I withdraw less? What if I die sooner? That sort of thing. So they can play with that. Maybe play with, I don't know, even simple portfolio. And the great thing with that is that at that point, we can then suggest to them that, look, why don't you speak to an advisor? And here is maybe 3 advisors on Timeline who are sort of within, I don't know, 10, 20-mile radius of your postcode, right? The beauty of that is that, first of all, and maybe we can partner, some of the conversation we're having internally is that maybe we can partner with some of the more credible, consumer websites, out there where people go to look for financial advice, right? But the important thing is that when that client gets to you and when they want to speak to you, the information, the data, i.e. your fact find, is already on Timeline. The consumer can decide to share this with you and how much they want to share with you. And you can look at that very quickly and say, is this a consumer that I want to speak to, engage with more seriously? And if that's the case, guess what? 2/3 of your fact finds already done. And you can take that back of the envelope plan that they've built in Timeline and convert it into a full all singing and all dancing plan. So to answer your question, yes, we see that future where we can enable this relationship in a cost-effective way. But I have to say that a lot of the cost in the advice process is actually regulatory, right? Yeah. So less, the technology can only do so much. There is still a big issue around how you remove the regulatory risk and the regulatory cost, for the equation. I think part of that is by reducing the cost of the product and the time it takes to manage the product, i.e. the portfolio on an ongoing basis, to the barest minimum. I would want to get to a point where the platform, the portfolio and the discretionary element of rebalancing the portfolio, if we can get that to all in, 30 basis points, right? We get all of that in, and we have examples of this already happening, all of that to 30 basis points, then maybe we don't need to get hung up on the fact that the advisor is charging 1%. Maybe actually for a client who walks in with, 50,000 pounds portfolio and the advisor chooses to engage, the fee is more like, 750 pounds a year or even 1,000 a year, right? But actually the overall package is still incredibly compelling, compared to what they would get with SJP or any of the options out there, That's the place that I think that we would like to get to in our work.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a good proposition and something definitely to work towards. And I think my thoughts, the value that an advisor brings to the table. When I was thinking about what you were saying, it's all well and good getting all that data, but it's all data.
Yeah.
What we really need to know is what is important to the client and what are they really trying to achieve. And that's where you take the data and you turn it into a plan. And just because they can put in they can fill in a few forms and the data goes in there, it doesn't bring the right. Well, I mean, maybe it will. Maybe with the machine learning and, you'll have some kind of clever stuff going on with the artificial intelligence that it'll start working out what is the greatest strategy for a client on a tax effective basis, but it still will never work out really what is important to somebody.
Absolutely. This is the thing, Justin. I kind of feel that right now where we are is that the data gathering, if you like, the optimization of the plan, right? Which one should I draw money out, the ISA or the GIA or both at what point? And fiddling with things like, rebalancing of portfolio, or God forbid, paying 30 basis points to a third party to do this. These things are getting in the way of real conversation, right, with the client. And we need technology to remove that obstacle, do all the heavy lifting so that, Justin, you can spend more time and more of your resources around this lady that I couldn't get my mind that you just talked about, of what does happiness and fulfillment and satisfaction mean for her. How she's just had you mentioned that she had she had a health challenge, right? What does she want to do with the rest of her life, right?
Yeah.
Does she still want to? She might still want to carry on with her NHS job. Maybe she doesn't. Maybe she wants to travel the world. Maybe she doesn't. But the tech isn't going to do any of that stuff. But the more time you have to spend as a planner on rebalancing portfolio, getting clients authorization to rebalance, portfolio, getting, ISAs, the more time you have to spend on that, the less you have to spend on the meaningful big picture stuff that really truly makes a difference in the lives of a client.
Yeah, absolutely, Aram. And yeah, if you can help harness that and get us to the bit that actually I think most planners love, the bit where we help change lives because we can help people make smart, sensible decisions around their money, allowing them to achieve what's important to them, so yeah, all, hands up to that tech, please. So last question, Abe. What's happening with Betafolio, sorry.
Yeah, so this is an incredible journey that we've gone with Betafolio. So we started Betafolio, essentially as a model portfolio service for firms. We originally thought of it as a separate entity to Timeline, right? And so we went to the FCA about 18 months ago, got the regulatory application, regulatory permission to do this, right? And we went live with it in March of 2020 at the Science of Retirement Conference. You were there. And we were kind of, open-minded. What we wanted to do was to say, well, I know that discretionary managed portfolios have a tainted reputation with many advisors, yourself included, right? And because these people are, buying and selling the earth and chopping and changing portfolio like, you're having a shower or something, and this and they're charging an arm and a leg for it. I don't know how they've managed to get away with charging 30 basis points, right? A third of what it costs to do advice for essentially rebalancing the portfolio. So we said, what if we rethink this? What if, first of all, we create the technology to do the heavy lifting, right? What if the portfolio is evidence-based, data-driven? We don't actually rebalance portfolio on a quarterly basis or an annual basis. We rebalance based on tolerance, which means, by the way, Justin, that we rebalance less frequently and we get more in terms of performance. And more importantly, what if everything is branded to the advisor so that you can call the portfolio whatever name you want? You can, have significant influence on the process. You can choose whether you, as the firm, pays for the service, a flat fee proposition, or whether the client pays for it, right? At a fraction of the cost, i.e., now in basis point, right? £250 a year, cost of producing a client report for the rebalancing, right? This is my thinking, or you client pays 9 basis point, and all in cost for our lowest our low-cost portfolio is something like 30 basis points all in. And we keep looking at how we can bring that down further and further and further. So the point I am trying to make is that we said, what if we rethink how MPS solutions been run so far? What if we put the advisor in the driving seat so that they're using technology and they're in control of the process? And what will advisors say? Well, I was incredibly amazed because in the last 13 months, we went from, frankly, zero of client assets under management, as they call it, to 250, right? So it took us 10 months to get to first 100 million, and then 3 months to get to the next 100 million. By the time I was drafting the PR to talk about 200 million, we'd already got to 250. And between the firms, so we now work with something like 30 odd firms who've committed to come on board. They look after 1.5 billion of assets to their clients, most of which they're migrating into the portfolio over the next year. So we've been amazed, is the word, by the traction this has taken. And so we said, actually, hang on, why are we keeping this as a separate entity for planners? Because nearly 90% of advisors who use Betafolio end up using Timeline, and we're seeing more and more of those Timeline advisors coming to us to ask about Betafolio. So we said, well, what if we integrate this journey more tightly for advisors who want to use it, right? So we're not going to enforce our ideas or philosophy on advisors. Maybe we will. but the idea is that if we think of this as just technology to facilitate the advice process, rather than the ego of a discretionary fund manager who wants to essentially, beat the market. And by the way, a lot, none of them do. We benchmark our portfolios against, all the range of multi-asset fund solutions out there. Rarely do we find one. It's very rare that we find one that will consistently outperform, a simple globally diversified portfolio, over a 3, 5, or 7-year period that we benchmark. So the idea is that we're bringing both propositions together in a more joined up way, so that as an advisor, you come in for the MPS, but you get all the tech, in terms of the risk profiling, the fact find, the plan, and all that stuff. Or vice versa, you come in for the planning technology, and if you want to take a step further, you have a well-integrated model portfolio service at the end of it. The beautiful thing is that the data, you're using the same data that to construct client plan, 100 years of capital market data, to construct client plan, to also essentially run their portfolio. What could be better than that, right?
Well, I mean, you really are setting out to fix a lot of the problems that I know that myself as a firm kind of knows very, very much are there. And, I suppose as all firms have done, we've kind of pieced stuff together to try and make whatever we feel is the best proposition. And it's a big enough job in itself, let alone, to try and work out, do you use, I don't know, do you use Google products for your back office software? Do you use Microsoft 365? Do you use Intelligent Office, or do you use Iris? Do you use Phenometrica or FE for your risk assessment, or Dynamic Planner? It just goes on and on and on. So I love what you're having a go at doing.
And the cost of doing this, I mean, you're in an incredible position, Justin, because I know you run a business, but you have a powerhouse, i.e. Kathy, at the back of the, show, essentially making everything work.
But, yeah, well, and it's bigger than that now, so there's 3 people supporting me, so it's But again, a
Yeah.
significant cost, isn't it?
Right, right. But still, in spite of that, you still, I mean, I work out the cost of the advice tech, as I cost it, as I call it. I've spoken to several advisors about it. You know, it's in the range, in the ballpark, somewhere between £5,000 a year to as much as £15,000 a year per advisor, right? Just to, you know, buy all these different pieces of technology, you know, that they need to do to deliver advice for clients. And then over and above that, they still have to pay for platform, you know, spend ungodly amount of time on the portfolio management, or, you know, pay 30 basis points to outsource it to a third party. All I am saying is that for less than £1,000 a year, I'll give you all the advice technology, but actually, you know, for less than a third of the going rate, I'll give you the MPS solution and the technology, right? I think, every time I look at the marketplace, I really like our odds, right? Every time I see all these DFMs or whatever they're called, or indeed, you know, Voyant or whoever are charging, you know, best part of £2,500 a year for cash flow technology. I like our odds in the marketplace, and, you know, bring it on.
Yeah.
What I say. Sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Well, Abraham, I think as I'm going to take, you know, as guest presenter, I'm going to bring us to a close. I think what you're doing is fantastic. I think that we're always looking for someone to come and disrupt the market. And if you can do things slicker, cleaner, faster, which makes our jobs easier and therefore allows us to serve more people and give better advice to more people, I think that's, you know, you're an enabler. So well done at what you're doing. And I really, really can't wait to see what you come out with in the next 3 years.
Oh, thank you, Justin. It's definitely not going to take 3 years. A lot of those things are already today. So, but, you know, all we're asking for is, you know, for forward-thinking advisors to come along for a ride. You know, I like singing this song. We're going on a bear hunt. We're going to catch a big one. What a beautiful day. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Abraham, where do people find out more about this new service and what you're doing, and how do they find out more?
Yeah, so, you know, come over to timelineapp.co, and yeah, we are going live with the new version of the website. It should already be live by the time you see this podcast. And there's a town hall meeting that we're going to be announcing very, very shortly. It might have happened by the time you listen to this podcast.
Fantastic. Well, once again, lovely to speak to you, Abraham, and I look forward to hopefully shaking your hand soon.
Thanks, Justin. Thank you. I'll be remiss if I don't thank my incredible team who worked very hard to put this program together, led by my producer, Hannah Dickinson. Thank you very much, guys. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Timeline App, the retirement planning software, and Betafolio, the high-tech, low-cost, flat-fee model portfolio manager. And to you, our listeners, thank you for your time. I hope you've had as much fun listening to the program as we have making it. You can find more about the show at retirementals.co.uk, and you can follow me on Twitter. My handle is Abraham on Money. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.